grew up attending a traditional Baptist church. I learned my body had to behave in certain clearly defined ways. I must sit and listen, not wiggle and talk. I had to stand for the singing, but sit for the offertory music. And if I had some spiritual business to do, then I should walk to the front of the sanctuary and talk to the preacher after the sermon. I had to dress properly, and knew that was especially important for the girls to be modest so the guys wouldn't have lusty thoughts about those pretty bodies. I knew people in other churches handled their bodies differently, like speaking in tongues or kneeling in the pew or smelling incense or observing silence. All of those other practices were strange and even unbiblical in my preacher's eyes. My physicality shaped my spirituality as more mental, more passive, and less experiential. But as an adult, is that the best way to encounter God? I'm Larry Payne, your host of Tracks for the Journey, a network dedicated to your well-being through progressive theology, positive psychology, and just communities. You can find more than 75 additional episodes on my website, tracksforthejourney.com. In this episode, let's explore the deep connections between our bodily experience and our spiritual life. Traditional Christian theology built a high wall between the body and the soul. Jewish and Roman teachings portrayed a celibate person as the one who could achieve greater spirituality. Paul carried on the theme as he wrote, "Now the works of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, sorcery," and then he goes on to add 10 more as a catalog of evil behavior through the body. Now, in his theology, flesh meant the nature of sin within each person, deeper than the physical actions. But in common teaching and subsequent doctrine, the body itself was impure, unholy, and the doorway to evil. Within 200 years of Christ, large numbers of men and women had left the pleasures of the world behind, moving away from the cities and moving away from pleasures like bathing, cooked food, comfortable homes, and sex, to live in a rigorous spirituality far from the evil world. The teaching of St. Augustine later made it clear that all sexual activity comes from the sin of Adam and reoccurs in the impure lust of each partner. The body's evil should be avoided as much as possible. The truth seemed clear. The body was evil, and spirituality was needed to subdue and escape it, to be closer to God. But is this the best picture of our spirituality? The center of the faith is the incarnation, the body of Jesus becoming the place of God's revelation. Fasting and feasting were both parts of his ministry. And the Bible does list those sins of the flesh, but in the next verses lists the embodied loving actions of the Spirit, like gentleness, kindness, and self-control. The body can express good, apparently. And Paul goes on to teach that the human body is the new temple of faith, supplanting the Jerusalem temple, and is to be treated with extra respect in a sacred way. This very Sunday, millions of Christians will physically taste the bread and wine of communion in a vivid divine encounter. Ruth Haley Barton, in her book Sacred Rhythms, shares this idea. Knowing that God has chosen to make our bodies his dwelling place opens the door for remarkable opportunities for heightening our awareness of God's presence. The ultimate guidance toward a holistic view of physicality and spirituality is found in another Pauline admonition: glorify God in your body. Today's worldview opens an opportunity to reintegrate our spirituality and our physicality. Modern psychology has shown that the traditional mind-body dualism is not valid. Human beings are a unity. For example, if I watch a frightening movie in the safety of my home, My mind will still direct my body to a fear response with increased heart rate and muscle tension. If I have a GI issue and am given a placebo that has no medicinal effect, yet I believe with my mind that it will help, then my body will have a response that brings healing more effectively. We are a mind-body unity, like a coin with two sides that can't be separated. Process theology is another modern worldview that teaches that every experience has a mental, physical duality. The physical receives input from outside the person. The mental receives input from the mind's interpretations. Both sources are essential for every experience in every creature. For example, if I see photons of light through my eyes, they must be interpreted by my mind's memories and categories to distinguish between a star in the heavens and a firefly a few feet away. In order to make an appropriate response, I have to integrate the physical and the mental. And then I can make a proper response, such as pointing to the star or reaching out to catch that firefly. In this process theology, God works in the mental dimension of reality, which we often label as spirituality. To each experience, God provides input, offering possibilities for response. These possibilities are options, not determinative of the choice. God's input to each experience is as real as a memory, idea, emotion, or hope that our mind brings to that moment. With the example I offered a moment ago, God offers a positive aim, such as feeling awe in the gleam of a bright star billions of kilometers away, or delighting at the pulsing of the firefly in its mating dance. God is present and active in every experience a human can have. In Bruce Epperly's words, God's relationship to the world is intimate and continuous rather than distant and discontinuous. God is not the holy other, but rather the holy present one, whose existence cannot be fully contained by the world. This combination of process theology and modern neuroscience promotes integration of our spiritual and physical lives. Our physical experiences are truly a gateway to a profound spiritual encounter. When we honor the body, we also honor the spirit. And when we honor the spirit, we experience that in a rich way in our bodies. Building on Ruth Barton's insights, I encourage developing this vital unity in several ways. First, this understanding gives a new impetus to healthy habits and nutrition. 40% of American adults are obese. This limits a person's lifespan and activities dramatically. Eating right and moving right are ways to honor the existence that God has granted to each of us. Moving towards fresh vegetables and fruits makes a difference in our nutrition, and moving off the couch for 30 minutes of activity per day changes the way we feel and think. We can serve God in more ways when we live longer with a healthy body. Second, we can listen to our body for signals to adjust our mind. A panic attack is a big signal that anxiety is overwhelming our body resources. It's a signal to examine how we are mentally coping with our situation. Some stressor is pushing us past our limit, and we must deal with it. For older adults, we find that depression is the #1 mental health issue. It's a signal that some loss, some hurt, is pushing a person past the limits of emotional adjustment. God is in these signals. We should listen to the divine message and take action to get help from a change in our mindset or our lifestyle. Third, we should make peace with our sexual context. It is basic that every human is a social creature and needs physical intimacy of some kind for maximum well-being. Intimacy is a broad category that spans from the nursing of a newborn to holding the hand of a senior adult on his final day. Intimacy includes the hugs, kisses, handshakes, hand holdings, cuddles, high fives, massage, erotic touch, and intercourse that binds people together. Bodily pleasure is not evil, but instead a celebration of the goodness God has placed in the universe. In ways that are appropriate for our context and orientation, this physicality is a pathway for spirituality. A passionate kiss is just as spiritual as a heartfelt prayer. Each has a divine connection that promotes well-being. And finally, we can pursue activities of the body that have deep spiritual bandwidth. We can kneel in prayer to submit to God. We can walk through the park to consider the ecology of nature and God's provision for life. We can sit in a yoga practice to meditate on the attributes of God. We can fix a meal to deliver a person to a person in need. We can listen to music, refinish furniture, weed a garden, or run a mile, all in communion with the Spirit who's the source of all creativity and connection to God. With all of these modalities, the key is awareness and intention. God is always present. We must tune our mind to make the connection. A crude example is a radio. We're always surrounded by radio waves that penetrate the atmosphere, go through our bodies, and are present everywhere. But only if we tune to the channel can we hear the message. To walk along the beach might bring only sandy feet. Or the moment may inspire our devotion of the never-ceasing waves that remind us of the never-ceasing love of God. The difference is our awareness to the inner prompting of that divine presence. Let me close with my own confession. I talk to my rose bushes. Yeah, they're alive to God just like I am. And as I fertilize, prune, and feed them, I share the connection between their fresh beauty and my own spiritual life in a communion far outside the walls of a church. Maybe we both grow better with a little love. So my connection to God has spread widely from the wooden pews of the Baptist church in my hometown. I've been in awe of mountains and felt the spray of waterfalls, and I've listened to the songs of faith in several languages and also the deep silence of a cathedral. The loving touch of family and the delight of hot chocolate on a cold morning have restored my soul. The ancient admonition of what we need for uniting our physicality with our spirituality comes once again from the Apostle Paul, who says to us, "Whatever you do, do everything for the glory of God." Thanks for joining me today for this episode of Tracks for the Journey. I'm Larry Payne, and I hope you'll get in touch with me through my email, connecttfj@mail.com. That email can put you in touch with all the resources that I have. In addition, those resources are found on my website, tracksforthejourney.com. On the website, you can also subscribe to my newsletter, Tracks Express, which brings inspiration and insight directly into your mailbox. Tracks for the Journey is produced at the Bright Star Studio, all rights reserved. I encourage you to keep on your walk of faith and join me in the next episode of Tracks for the Journey.